I can see you.
I can see you and I can hear you.
All right. Kid Dave Miller coming to us from an undisclosed location in northeast Georgia.
Jeopardy's useless data. You'll never use that. If you leave here tonight, go to some bar, drink, drive home, cops pull you over, think you're drunk, they're not going to jerk you out of the car and go, all right, stand on one foot, tip your head back, close your eyes, touch your nose. Who's the king of France from 1520 to 1575? Because everybody in here would be going, shit. Honey, I'm going to jail. I didn't even drink anything.
Sitting on his
Wildwood, Georgia.
What's that?
Wildwood, Georgia.
Wildwood, Georgia. Is that where it is?
Yep.
Nice. So are you living a quiet lifestyle? Are you still going on the road?
I haven't done the road in the last couple of years. I work at the local club some.
Which is?
I kind of, trying to make a long story short, did the road for forever and ever and ever. Then I got into the cruise ship thing for a couple of years, which was a nice paycheck, but I didn't like ships. And then I toured with Ron White for a couple of years, and that was awesome.
Right.
That kind of ran its course. Then was back to the decision of, do I want to go back to living out of a car, staying in those condos and hotels, or do I just want to kind of get off the merry-go-round here? And I just figured that was sort of a good place to get off. So by then I was already doing a lot of this hang gliding thing. And so I still do some stand-up, and I used to go in the winter. We're real slow, and I used to go out and do a month or two of road clubs. But to do that, I've got to get someone to come house sit and dog sit for me. In the last couple of years, I really haven't had anybody available to do that. So I just did not do that. I still like doing road clubs, but it just hasn't been real practical the last couple of years. So no, I have not.
Right. Well, yeah, I know. As much as we love doing this, I've slowed down myself, and you try to pick and choose your spots if you can afford to. How isolated are you out there? It looks like you're out in the country for sure.
Yes, it's probably. I have some neighbors here. I've been out here mowing. All these lots are like an acre and a half, but it's on a private gravel road. And even though it's technically Wildwood, Georgia, Wildwood really is a post office about 4 miles from here. It's not really a town. So probably 7 miles from the closest stoplight.
Wow. So I saw your, is it David French that you did an interview with? Dan French?
Yeah.
Okay, and I can put a link in the description to that interview. Because I watched the whole thing. You talked a lot about your experience with opening for Ron White and in front of going from clubs, one-nighters and clubs and colleges to opening in front of thousands of people for a major national name with tour buses and the whole thing. What I like, we can talk a little bit about that if you like. What I like to talk about is the days that you and I met. I don't know.
Right.
I think it was in Tennessee somewhere, and we were staying in very small motels. Let's put it that way. And
I think it was over in North Carolina somewhere, if I remember right.
Was it Comedy Zones?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, and you turned me on to what was then called a news group, with the predecessor. What do you call it? Predecessor to Facebook? And
right.
Yeah,
I think that was called alt comedy stand up. That was kind of group email thing or so. It was a long time ago in the kind of the early days of social media.
Right. And there was a lot of comics on there and a lot of comedy fans and, a lot of arguments and discussions and I remember I called Mitch Hedberg a mirthful poet, and I gave him credit for being a poet, being a very good writer, but he didn't make me laugh out loud real hard. Mm-hmm. I got all kinds of shit for that. Oh, yeah, what do you know? It's like,
yeah, but people latch on to figures, in any kind of art, whether it's music or whatever, and you get your blinders wearing disciples that say you can't say anything wrong, and then some other people are a little bit more broad-minded about, yeah, well, they do this well, I think this, maybe not in the traditional sense they do that.
Right.
In comics, everybody loves to argue, so it's like you're full of shit. And I don't know that Mitch would have not agreed with that description of him. He was not, his style and was not traditional stand-up, even though it was one guy, even though it was monology, he wasn't the bam, 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 sometimes you had to think about it a second. Sometimes you had to wait a minute and go, what is, oh, I got it, Yeah. And he liked that, he knew he wasn't for everybody.
And who is?
And that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what the story, and every headliner probably has some story like this, but some club where, I think I know the club, but it doesn't matter. But Mitch, the show had been horribly mismatched in the bookings, and they had for him some feature who was really high energy, real animated, pretty blue, and was going to kill. He was a strong comic. And then you put Mitch after him. Long story short, it would be like James Taylor trying to follow Kiss.
Right.
Why would you do that? It just cannot work.
Right.
And after the second or third show, Mitch was eating it so bad because the waters were muddied before he got to the stage. It wasn't his fault. But after the second or third show, they had said, look, man, we're going to have to put you on before this other guy because he's killing you, and Hedberg's like, I'm the headliner for the week. You need to pay him and let him go home and put somebody in here that sets the stage for me well.
Right.
And, and the same thing, working with Ron or those big acts like that.
Ron White, yeah.
Somebody who sets the stage for them to open, because it's like, again, I never worked for a lot of those other guys, so I don't know, but I can tell you, like working with Ron, I was supposed to go up and do 20 minutes before him. But he also told me, he goes, look, man, I don't really need someone to do 20 minutes in front of me. I can do 2 hours by myself, easy. But in these big theaters and sometimes arenas, basketball arenas, there's bars outside. They're getting drinks. They're out there milling around until the show starts. Now they're coming in. It's a big clusterfuck there. He goes, if you start killing 10 minutes in, that means they're ready, and you can end it right there. I just need somebody to get them in their seats and looking at the stage. That's basically what I need from you. I don't need you to kill for 20 minutes. I know it's fun for you to go kill for 20 minutes in front of a whole bunch of people, but if you're out there doing 10 minutes and you're murdering, you can come on off because I got it. You completed what I needed from you.
Right.
That's that.
Yeah. You don't want to kill too hard in front of a national headliner. You probably never open for him again.
Well, he's not gonna, Ron following me, he's never gonna have a problem because I was in the right vein of setting the table. I didn't muck up the waters really. And we had worked on the road a bunch of times. I mean, I'd known the guy for 20 years before that ever happened. And so we already meshed pretty well on and off the stage.
Yeah. So yeah.
But there's other guys like you talk about, and I never met Bill Hicks. I never saw Bill Hicks. I've only seen some video. There's not a lot of video out there. And people will say that same stuff about Hicks is like, oh, he's a genius. And maybe he is, but he wasn't, to me, a laugh out loud guy. He might meander around for a while, just something off the top of his head, then get into some bits for a minute, then wander away from that. So, but, you get in the Bill Hicks disciple room and you say anything,
right?
You're going to get ripped to shreds.
Right.
So,
yeah, you
give
these guys all the credit in the world, and Mitch Hedberg certainly has to this day a very loyal, large following,
right?
And so does Bill Hicks. And if there's anybody watching that's fairly new, since they both passed away. I think today's actually I think I read it was the 16th anniversary of Mitch passing away. If you're new and you're watching this, Google these guys, Mitch Hedberg and Bill Hicks. These are legends in the comedy world. But again, comedy's subjective. So I might laugh at somebody that you won't, and vice versa.
Right. Exactly. Some people are successfully mining a vein of something that I'm not interested in, and it doesn't mean they're not good at it or not technically good.
Right.
Just not up my alley.
Right. Right. But you've been up my alley, buddy. I've always thought you were very funny.
Thank you.
Yeah. I would come out. I mean,
and you.
What's that? Say it again.
And you.
Thank you. I want to thank you. I'm glad you said that twice. I did. That's very nice. And I think that's one reason we got along is we've been friends all these years, although we don't see each other hardly ever.
Right.
We worked together in the South, and then I would see you when you came out to the Funny Bone in Boise once.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
And then we kept in touch on that comedy stand-up, which I understand is still in existence. A friend of mine checks in every now and then. He says there's like 2 people posting there. So
I see a post every once in a while. I thought it kind of dissolved and everybody probably moved to Facebook, and
that's pretty much what happened.
But a lot of that group, like any 20-year-old group, people move on to other stuff in their life or pass away or whatever, and the nucleus thing has moved to other places. And I see some of those people every once in a while on Facebook, and some of them are like, what happened to so-and-so? It's like, that time we met in Vegas, never saw him again, never heard from him again, never, nothing. So.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway.
So, what I really got a kick out of, I came across on the internet, an article you did for something called Shecky Magazine, which I don't think is being published online anymore.
No. It's been gone for probably 10 years, I think.
Yeah, and you wrote a brilliant piece. I started calling it Comedy 101, but it's almost a master class in Comedy 101. You really dissected what makes comedy works and what doesn't make it work, and what a young comedian should do and shouldn't do, and not just in a subjective, opinionated way, but basically in the technical way. There's technique to stage, and then there's presentation.
I don't have that in front of me. I remember writing that back then, that you know, and you had sent me something earlier before this about what your podcast is about, road, and you know, a lot of people. I was lucky enough to that one and lucked into it. Now I tell people I give people instructions to where to start at right now, where they are right now. Even if they've only got 3 minutes of jokes, I can tell you stuff to do right now that will help you. But I either lucked into doing myself. I didn't do it because I knew nothing. I lucked into some things. I learned some stuff while I was there. That I started out when I started doing open mics in an all-week club, which was hugely lucky right there. You know, if your open mic is at a one-nighter club, you don't really have anybody there to give you much guidance. You know, stand-up's not their main thing. There may be no one else there doing stand-ups that really knows anything about it. You got blind leading the blind. And I landed in a place where that was not the case. You know, comedy was their full-time deal. And there was other guys there. The first time I did open mic, or first time I saw open mic, and this was probably 86 or something like that. Ron White was there on the bill. He was about to start on the road. Bill Engvall was there, already a working headliner. But that's back when comics used to come to open mics. So then you have your regular run-of-the-mill open mic guys who don't know anything and argue about who wrote some old stock joke that's already been used for 20 years. You know, they want to get in a fist fight over it. But there's a lot of stuff you can learn from ground zero. So that if you do, I don't know how guys start on it. I know how it was then. Totally different from that. You know, this was before email, video, all that stuff. You know, you were mailing tapes or VHS tapes or trying to piggyback on someone you knew. Totally different way to start. But some of this stuff, it will be the same if you want to talk about that, of how to get ready for the road. So if you do start there, you're not shooting yourself in the foot from day one, because, you know, having worked in that comedy club and took a barback job. So then I was around comedy all the time and seeing guys, working guys come through. And I was talking to those guys. I wasn't really hanging out with the other open micers because they didn't know anything. I was talking to guys who were already working. Hey, man, tell me something. What's this like? How do you get that? What about this? You know, and you got bored comics sitting around with nothing to do. Yeah, they'll fill a barback's ear with all you want to hear. They got nothing else to do. You know, and plus I'm the bartender. I'm handing them drinks. They're getting what they want. In return, yeah, man, okay, you want to talk about that? Then here we go. So I got a really good education before I even went to my first road gig. I already knew a lot of important stuff day one. And we all, you know, we've all made massive mistakes along the way that we look back and go, what was I thinking? But at least there was a bunch of mistakes that I didn't make, or if I did make, I knew I was breaking the rules from the word go. Again, there's so many people trying to get into it now. The competition is so freaking stiff that I don't know how anybody gets anywhere at this point. I just don't know those ropes because that's 30 years ago for me. But I can still tell people give some people advice to get ready for the road before they even go. And that's one of them. If you live someplace where there is an all-week comedy club, get a job there. You know, I don't care if it's bar back, taking tickets, doorman, seating the room, whatever. Get in there. That is your graduate level comedy class. Get in there. See the business of comedy, because it is business. A lot of people treat it like, look at me, I'm killing and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. It's about me. It really, no. You know, unless you are a big name person that's going to attract people into that room to take money out of their pocket, it's not about you. So you need to know how to act in your spot in that show, you know. But if you can,
Yeah.
and it's not going to pay much, and it may only be a night or two a week, whatever, that is your comedy university right there. If you can go get that job, not only will you learn all that stuff, you're already making connections. Even if you only have 5 minutes of open mic material, you're already networking with people in the business.
Yeah.
Show business, all business is about networking, but especially show business is about networking. And even before you're ready to get out there, you're already networking with the players. So when you do get ready to go on the road, you've already got this spider web of connections built to start from, other than plopping down one day, I'm ready to go on the road. What do I do? Well, that takes years, I guess, to really learn and master. But you can start, again, 5 minutes of open, even if you've never done open mic, you just want to. I can tell you, Jesus Christ, the guy's a Reno Collier. I remember when Reno Collier was a doorman at the Punchline Atlanta. Now Reno's big. Bill Engvall's opening act, tours these guys that were kids, working the door someplace, or a bartender someplace that later started moving along and already had a lot of comedy savvy when they hit the ground running. They weren't milling around in this big pond of clueless open micers. They just shot right over that and went.
Yeah. I mean, that's great advice. And I wish I would have talked to you back then, because I lived in LA. I know a lot of guys that worked the door at the Comedy Store, and, I was driving cab, and I was lucky enough to be in LA so that I could hang out at those clubs, but I never worked as a doorman or a bartender, but that would have really been the thing to do. So,
well, another thing from that, if you're just being there, there are times when, the manager comes back to the bar and says, hey, my MC's on the other side of town and he's got a flat tire. I need somebody right now. Get up there. You just automatically start getting stage time that way, because there's always something happening where the MC can't make it. The freaking feature act is barfing his guts at the condo. Get up there, do something.
Yeah.
And if you can successfully do that, you don't have to get up there and kill. But as long as you're not a train wreck, then now you are becoming a cog in the machine.
Right.
And now they'll take you out of the local open mic pile. Who am I gonna get? Dave's standing right there. Hey man, you want to MC this week? Yeah, I'm here anyway. Okay. You're it. You make their job easier, then your life is going to get easier. That's probably one of the number one things to remember when you go to a club, and you see guys go into a club and they think because they're one of the comics that they're somehow special. And, I get my drink first. I want my drink now. You waitresses do this. Hey, I'm going to try and pick you up. All that stuff that makes a manager's job more of a pain in the ass, the less likely he is to want to see you again, because you represent a pain in the ass to that guy. He already has enough pains in the ass. You're one less. So just remember that when you go in there. When the bar's busy, stay away from the damn bar. Those guys live off tips and selling full price drinks, and you're getting yours for half a comp. Get your drinks when the bar's not busy. Tip the bartender. Just because you work there too doesn't mean he still doesn't get tips. That greases the wheels. I know when you're an MC, you're not making much money, but still, every time you tip somebody, think about that as an investment in your own future. You want that bartender to like you, because he may be the assistant manager, or next week be the manager, or a month from now, that waitress you were trying to bug and pick up, now she's booking the room, and you got to go through her to get that week. And she remembers you of that idiot bugged. I don't want him anywhere near this place. Yeah. So
yeah, and not
I can't tell you. I'm sure you know this too. A million times you call your old hookup for some room that you've known for 10 or 15 years. He quit. He's gone. Who's booking the room now? One of the waitresses is doing it. And if you have a good relationship with her because you didn't act like a jerk, hey, man, this is your old friend Dave here. How about a week? Yeah, man, how you doing? But if you were a pain in their ass, again, sorry. My phone rings all day long with you guys, and you're a pain in my ass. So, no.
Yeah, a lot
you
of
got a good reason to say yes.
That is so common. And if a waitress doesn't graduate to being a booker, a lot of times the club owners won't even watch the show, and they'll ask the wait staff, "How was he? How do you do?" And if they don't like you, you didn't do well, and you won't do well there.
Nope. And that is hard to come back from, you know.
Yeah.
To have to try and reprove that, yeah, I can do well in there. Okay, come do a guest set sometime. I live 1,000 miles away from you. You know, that's not really practical for me. I don't care. You know? I get you guys calling me all day long.
Yeah.
I care about what's practical for me from booking the room.
90% of half the job, Yogi Berryism, is just being there and being there without getting in the way. I got my first one of my first regular headlining gigs at a real club because I featured there once a year, and one of those times the headliner weighed about close to 400 pounds, and this was in Denver, the Mile High City, and he couldn't do more than 20 minutes without getting out of breath. So they flipped us. He still got headliner pay and I still got feature pay, but I did 45 and he did 20. And then after that, I was headlining at that club.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta have your eyes open all the time, and everything any little thing could be an opportunity to jump to the next level or another room you want to get into, or
so
you know, again, I tell people the best, you know, because there's a zillion comedy schools out there now. Some clubs teaching comedy, you can go, and I never took one, so I really can't comment on whether they're good or bad. I'm sure they've learned some positive things, but the best comedy schools ever, without a doubt, have to be the green room and the condo, where you spend large amounts of time with guys who, not the guys that teach comedy don't know anything. That's not what I'm saying, but you're spending a lot of time with guys who performing and working on the road is their full-time gig. And, you know, you may sit through hours and hours of just bullshit and get one nugget out of there that is priceless, just from being around those people. You know, the nuggets aren't laying around on top of the ground for you to go around to pick them up. If they were like that, we'd all have them. You have to mine those. You have to find those, or you get one and you have to go, what does this mean to me? This may not apply to me too much, but what can I learn from this? Or what can I learn from that guy's mistake? Or what can I learn from that guy's success? You know, could be, I'm not a music act. The headliner's a music act. We don't have anything in common. That is not necessarily true. You know, you're still in the same business.
And you still watch. I still watch openers. If I'm headlining, I'll still watch the opener. You can always learn something from anybody if they're on stage. And people ask me, you know, well, how do I do? I want to do stand-up comedy. What do I do? I say, get up on stage.
Right.
Stage as often as you can. And you got to find out for yourself who you are and what you are on stage. I can't tell you that, but if you don't get up on stage, you'll never know. You'll never know what it is.
That's the only way to learn the craft.
Right.
You know, again, you kind of have to compartmentalize some of this stuff. There is the craft of stand-up, and that is the only way to learn that. And if you want to even break that down further, again, and I know some people don't have this opportunity. The only place to do comedy may be some rowdy ass beer joint where the crowd's out of control and dick jokes rule and whatever. And if that's the only place you have, then that's the only place you have. But a lot of times those guys that murder in one of those places go into a regular full week comedy club and just tank it because it's a totally different critter. It's like, this building is the business of comedy. This is not a business of, like you said in one of your other podcasts, where it's they have a cabaret contract that says we have to have some kind of performer this many times to keep our liquor license. They don't give a shit about comedy. They won't even turn off the hockey game. They don't really care if you do well or not. It doesn't matter, because tomorrow night is going to be something else. Some guy with a guitar. They don't give a shit. But a full week comedy club, again, that's their business, and they try to keep it at a certain level. So if you can get in one of those full week ones, or even a good one nighter, and stay away from those crappy hell rooms, at some point you're not learning anything in those places. Not that dick jokes are bad. I have my share of them that I whip out if I have to, but to be the master of those crappy one-nighters is just going to get you more of those crappy one-nighters. You have to look ahead. Where am I going? Again, and I didn't either. I didn't think, what's my end game here? For me, again, I would say someone who's new, sit down and pick out some sort of target out there, and your target may change later. Once you start doing it, you may go, okay, that's not really my target anymore. But at least you were moving towards something instead of just flapping around out there. And I didn't really have the target, but it turned out for me, and I think for a lot of guys, even after having done it for 30 years, I was never interested in acting or sitcoms or that stuff. Even now when I look back, I don't go, wow, I should have moved to LA. I was married to a woman who worked for Foxworthy's first manager, and he's kind of a hitter in the stuff, and he had managed Steve Harvey and Brett Butler and stuff like that. So because of that connection to him through my wife, there would be times he'd ask me, he goes, hey, look, man, I got a industry night at the Melrose Improv, and he had Billy Gardell, Steve Harvey, Tim Wilson, some of these names. And he goes, and they're fucking brutal. And no one laughs, and it's horrible. But I need somebody to go up there and take the first blow, to open the show. And you're going to eat it miserably, and no one's going to laugh. But I need somebody, not one of my money guys, to take that blow. While they come into the room and sit down and get their seat and say hello, they might not even hear a word I say. Somebody's got to go take that shot. Do you want to go do it? So you hear those horror stories about people going to LA and have to stand outside the building at noon to draw numbers and all that kind of crap to get on at 1:00 in the morning or whatever. Hey, man, I can go right over the top of all that bullshit and go in. So I got to see that stuff, and I got to do some of those shows. And there was one time that we were staying with a friend of my wife's a few blocks from the Improv and crashing on the couch. Tim Wilson was crashing on the couch too. And we did the show. Everybody ate it, but they were seen. We all got seen by industry, whatever that means. Everybody ate it bad. And we were walking back over there to that woman's apartment. And Tim's just saying, and I was just like, God damn, man, that's as bad as I have ever eaten it in my life. And Tim was like, It doesn't matter. Who gives a shit what those people? It really, we're stand-up comic. That's what we do. You know, they go home, they have their thing they do, trying to find pegs to put in holes for shows. That's what those guys do. We do stand up. That's our gig. That's our passion. That's what our thing is. So, you know, learn something from that, but don't take it personal, because it's not personal. Those people, if they saw me the next day, they wouldn't remember me. You know, they're not gonna have it in for me forever.
Right.
And again, just to this long thing I've just talked about was your target. I didn't really have a target, but it turned out for me, again, I don't know how big a hurry you're in. I just watched this hour-long thing on Facebook. It's an internet movie about Ginger Baker, right? The drummer. Have you ever heard of Ginger Baker?
Yeah,
the drummer for Cream, and just a crazy whack job, but one of the great drummers of all time. And for him, blown fortunes, you know, blew it on all kinds of crazy shit, polo horses, drugs, whatever. But for that guy, performing was the target. Right. You know, getting behind those drums was always his target. And that's okay, you know. And for me, and probably for some degree you, because you still grind it out there, is sometimes the target is, I just want to do stand-up. I just want to be good at stand-up. And that's an okay target. If that is your target, then again, I did clubs for probably 20 years and I loved it. You know, I loved traveling. I loved going to different places. I loved even morning radio shows that suck, you know, 6 o'clock in the morning. I still dug that. You know, you get to go be on part of the local scene. The whole town's going to hear your voice and your name. People come to the clubs. You get to go do the fun cultural shit. You kind of get a pass to the front of the line a lot of times. Hey, these are the comedians from wherever. Come on in. You know, free drinks, whatever you want. I loved all that stuff. So as I look back and probably at aging out or whatever you want to call where I'm at now in this business that I still dabble in some, I don't really look back and go, wow, here was my mistake, or I have these disappointments because I didn't get something. It was like, holy shit, you know, I spent 20 years on stage doing this craft that I loved doing, you know, and I think I was good at it. I made people laugh. They seemed to be happy with it. They got what they wanted. I got what I wanted. I was happy just being Ginger Baker behind the drum sets, just playing the goddamn drums. That's what he wanted to do. And I was happy with that microphone, just doing stuff I thought up that thought was funny and see if I could turn it into something that a whole room of people who had nothing in common came together on that focus place I just gave them and reached a common verdict, which was, that's funny.
Yeah.
I was okay with that.
That's a great
but
way.
People, I think, I think people before they start should have some target, whether it's, I want to be a famous sitcom actor. That's what I want to be. All right. You know, then aim at that. But there's plenty of us out there that perfectly happy toiling away in almost anonymity. I mean, everybody wants to be kind of known and make nice money, and that's cool. But for me, the thing was, you know, I love doing stand-up, and every chance I got to do it was a victory. I thought.
Yeah. And I mean, the theme of this podcast is the niche I'm aiming for, because I think it's an underrated niche, is that I want to talk to the funniest people you've never heard of. You know,
there's lots of them out there.
That's exactly right. There are so many people out there that are just as funny as the people you see on TV, that are out working the road, that are working clubs, and funnier. And that's right. That's not, you know, to put down anybody. I don't put down anybody for having a successful successful career on television, but I think that there are so many unknown people out there that are extremely talented and extremely funny. And seeing, there's nothing like seeing live comedy, going out to a comedy
Right.
and seeing live comedy. For the first few years, I mean, I loved comedy all my life. And for the first few years on the road, I was frustrated because I wanted that TV. I wanted that quick fix, you know, the show business thing. And then I started being miserable and frustrated on the road, you know, and then I realized, you know what? If I'm not having fun doing this, why am I doing it? And I flipped my whole perspective. And since then, it's just been, I'm doing comedy. I want to be the best comedian I could possibly be and whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if people have that goal of TV, you know, stardom, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Hey, okay, that's cool. But you have to realize that a lot of that is in someone else's hands. Someone else is going to decide whether you get on Letterman or get the Tonight Show or whatever thing you think is, you know, your definition of stardom. There's going to be a bunch of other people in there who on a whim get to decide that, whether, hey, we don't use that on the Tonight Show. Hey, that's not Letterman stuff. We you know, whatever it is you are, I'm not looking for you for this sitcom. That's just, you know, I'm looking for these characters. You're not it. Another personal, can't use you. So a lot of this stuff is out of your hands, but like you said, you retook that power back into yourself and said, okay, I'm still going to be flipping my line out there, you know, and all the time, because it's like the lottery. You don't play, you can't win. I'm still going to be flipping my bait out there, but I am going to focus my happiness or my satisfaction on what I am doing, which is being up there with a microphone, telling you people stuff that I have written for you to hear.
There is no bigger pleasure than, to me, and I'm sure to you and many others, than doing a new bit and having it kill.
Right. Yeah.
And
that validates it right there.
Yeah. That's
like I thought this up. I said it. These guys laughed their ass off.
Yeah. Yeah.
I still got it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's another nugget I can put in the pouch. And yeah. So yeah, that's funny. This conversation actually, in a way, took a bend I wasn't expecting. I was going to see if I could get you to talk more about some road stories. Like I said, I'm going to put the link to the Dan French interview where you talk a lot, and that's a great interview where you talk a lot about your experience with Ron White, because you went from, I'm looking, and I'm going to put a link to the Shecky article too, if you don't mind.
Sure.
From laundromats and open mics to opening for Ron White, and for years, and writing the tour buses and seeing what, participating in quote unquote the big time of comedy show business. So do you have any stories from your early days, or what made, because you've got to make a total commitment, really. It's so competitive. We talked about that. You got to jump off the cliff and say, okay, I'm doing comedy and I'm totally going to commit to it. What made you do that, and where did you start? And
well, again, luck had everything to do with it, because like I told you, I started doing I had moved from up near Amarillo, Texas to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I thought I was going to go to graduate school. But I moved down there like at the last second, and I didn't get enrolled in school, blah, blah, blah. Went to a comedy club, saw some shows, saw open mic, thought I can do this. I always kind of wanted to do it, but there was no place to do it. And I finally got the chance, started doing some open mics. And the manager of the club, I didn't know anybody down there really. And I had a day gig. But the manager of the club had told me, he goes, hey, man, if you want to, because I was at open mic every week. He goes, if you want to come on these other nights, we'll let you in for free. Just come hang out. So then I was hanging out. And then they're like, you're here all the time. You want to work here? Yeah, sure. I'm here. Might as well get paid. Fast forward a year or more. The manager of that club also did stand up. And it was a funny bone. Not to pimp the funny bone, was going to figure into the whole thing. He was a stand-up, and he wanted to go on the road. And at that time, the Funny Bone had 16 clubs. So because he had been the manager and worked for him, they said, all right, we'll hook you up with a week in all of our clubs. There's 16, there's 4 months worth of work right there. First rattle out of the box. So when he did that, I was like, hey, I want to do that too. And the regional manager of like 4 Funny Bones says, I can't afford to lose both you guys at once. You're like the top 2 guys here. I'm going to move a manager in from one of the other clubs. But I was also kind of running the daily, at that point, the telemarketing, the daytime stuff. I was doing a lot of that. And she was like, if you'll stay here for 3 months and train somebody to do all that stuff you do, I'll hook you up with those same 16 clubs. Well, how do you turn that down? 4-month schedule just handed to you. Okay, I'll do it. So I stayed and trained some other people. And then here I go. It's the MC spot, but it's still the road. In all week clubs. It wasn't starting out doing shitty one-nighters. I didn't start. I later on did a bunch of one-nighters, but I didn't start in them. I had 16 freaking A-room clubs. So I'd go do one. And they're like, at the end of your 16 weeks, if you want to come back and get your old job back, we'll have something for you. Okay. Well, I'd go do a week. Went pretty well. They're paying me at the end of the week. Hey, man, you had a pretty good week. When you want to come back? I don't know. When can I come back? When's your next open week? 4 months from now, this date right here. Okay, bam. So every one time I was doing one of those 16, because the MCs can come back a lot, right? You're not that big a part of the show. So every time I did one of those, I'd add it on the end again. Add it on the end again. And at the same time, you're trying to pick up new clubs. If you have a night off, you go do a guest set somewhere, or you meet somebody who's like, hey, man, I can get you in here if you want to work this one. You're always looking for something new. So what I thought was going to last 4 months turned into 20 plus years on the road, basically out of sheer luck. I was just in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, you fell into it. And it was during the comedy booms where there was plenty.
Yeah. It was sort of the tail end of the big boom, but it was still boomy enough where I got in. And you talk about road stories, and it's networking. That probably maybe 2 months in, I was working a club in Marietta. It was called the Comic Cafe. I don't know if you ever did that or remembered it. Chris DePetta owned it. He was Billy Gardell's manager.
Did it once, yeah.
And I worked that club, and probably 1988. And I was the opener. Dan Whitney was the feature act, who later went on to be Larry the Cable Guy. And Ellen DeGeneres was kind of right off her first HBO thing. And Ellen was the headliner for the whole week. And at some point during the week, DePetta had asked me, he goes, hey, I managed to get Dennis Miller for Monday night, 2 shows on Monday night. You want to stay over on Monday night and do 2 shows with Dennis Miller? Well, yeah, I do. This was when he was huge on Saturday Night Live. So here I was 2 months into comedy. And even though Dan was not a big name then, Ellen was, that, I was like, man, I've been doing this 2 weeks. I'm working with Ellen DeGeneres. I'm meeting Dennis Miller. This ain't as hard as it looks, Well, I was wrong, but still, But then, you meet Whitney, or same thing. I met Ron the second time I did open mic, and we were friends for years and years and years, just grinding it out on the road. And then boom, he hits big time, and I managed to con him into let me open a show, and it went well, and we were already friends. I was like, hey man, what are you doing next week? Come next week and do for me, or come write for me. I already got an opener for the show. Just come out and sit on the side of the stage and write jokes. And so people that you meet and work in clubs, you never know when they're going to blow up huge, and then just think, yeah, I like that guy. All right. Yeah, sure, man. Here, I'll throw you a bone. So, I always thought Dan Whitney was funny, but back then he was very one-liner. I don't know if you ever knew him when he was Dan Whitney, but
No.
His act was very one-liner. I can give you an example of one joke that his whole act was like this. He was like, hey, I went to one of those celebrity softball games. The Who was on first. It was just bam, 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 just two lines. And he was a real goofy character, And then he evolved into what he is now, a storyteller kind of. But you never know who you're staying in a condo with that, for whatever reason, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, all the planets get in alignment for that person. And, maybe they got something for you. Maybe not, but nothing that, Ellen, I never saw her again. We were friendly that week, but she wasn't staying in a condo, and she had TV stuff all day long. And she'd hang around after the show a little bit and have a drink or something. Friendly may not be the description, because I think she was very business oriented, but she was nice to everybody. I don't think she was looking to make friends or stuff, but some people are like that. Some people want to be friends. But you meet, who knows who you're going to run into at some point. They may end up booking something big. All of a sudden, again, I hate to keep pulling the name, let's say servers, because waitress is kind of antiquated, but you're working someplace and hanging with the staff and everybody's partying, and these young people who are just starting to work, and next thing you know, one of them's in LA working on some show. Hey, guess what? I'm working at the Improv now. You should come out here. Now you got a contact someplace that you never would have guessed. You just got to keep your eyes and ears open and not alienate people.
Yeah. Hey, you got
plenty of comics that go in a club and alienate everybody first rattle off the box. You just pissed everybody off for no reason.
Yeah.
And you never know what that's going to cost you down the road.
Yeah. So you have any personal stories about being on stage, or any shows that just totally went sideways or went in some weird direction?
Well, I heard yours about the guy at the one-nighter that was yelling at you and then decides he's going to get up and try and come on stage or something. Right. I never had anything quite like that, but I can tell one that the first time I got booked to headline in a Funny Bone, and it was in Columbus, Ohio, which was kind of one of their main rooms at the time. And place was full. This is when comedy clubs were full. And I'm standing off to the side of the stage. The MC is doing my intro, and the soundboard was right next to the door in and out of the service bar, right? So now you can see this coming probably. Right as he's doing my intro, a waitress comes out of the service bar with a tray full of drinks. Somebody's walking across to go to the bathroom or something, hits her, whole tray of drinks goes into the soundboard. Oh. Bam! Hear this bang and sparks flying and shit. think maybe even the lights went out. I don't remember, but the sound was definitely out.
Right.
And then here you got to go up on stage in a pretty big room with your first time to headline this club. That's kind of a big deal with no sound.
Right.
And there you are. And, luckily I can talk loud enough and project loud enough. I can still do it, but it's still right before you go up, you're in the mindset of, here we go. I'm going to start this show, and all of a sudden something drastically changes that you have to. And that kind of stuff obviously happens, especially like in one-nighters or.
Yeah.
So there's one. God, there was so much weird shit that, corporate gigs that go bad.
Yeah.
You never should have taken.
My first corporate gig is one of my top 2 bad shows ever. Probably number 1, really. Just horrible. They asked me, I was working coconuts in Florida, and they said after Saturday night, they said, do you want to stay an extra night and do a corporate tomorrow? And I said, sure. And they said, have you ever done a corporate before? And I said, no. She goes, well, they're a little different. They're a little different. So, you got to, it's a different way of handling it. And I'm like, big deal. It's another show.
Right.
Yeah. And, and some of them are like regular club shows, but most of them are a little different. So the opener goes up there and just kills. There's about 250 people in there, and he just destroys for 10, 15 minutes. Feature goes up there, destroys for 30 minutes. Just crazy. And I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be awesome. Well, turns out that they had been partying and barbecuing and picnicking all day, and they were drunk. And that when the opener and the feature were done, they were done.
Right.
And I go up there, and it's just the energy's just gone. You can just feel it, just sucked out of the room. And there's a woman sitting up front, and she had her sweater, turned out to be a sweater across her legs. She had her legs kind of spread. And I made some comment, because to me it looked like a mini skirt. And I made some comment about her having her legs spread with a mini skirt. And then she goes, "It's a sweater." And she took it, removed it, and she had shorts on. And now not only was the energy gone, but now there was like a negative energy.
Right.
Still in the room. And I could not buy a laugh after that. And then 10 minutes in, some drunk woman, "Why don't you say something funny?" And I said, "Why don't you blah, blah, blah?" And now there was like more than negative energy. Now there was hate in the room.
Right.
And it turns out that this woman was the boss of everybody in the room.
Right.
And I got nothing. And I had to do the 45 minutes to absolutely nothing but just,
right.
Yeah. So after the show, of course, I get people coming up to me going, "Oh, we wanted to laugh, but that's our boss," and it was just,
right.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Yeah. The corporates, and I learned over time, and I ended up starting to put that stuff in my contract, stuff like, I don't go on until everybody's done eating and all the dishes are off the table.
Right.
Because you can't do comedy when they're serving food or people are eating. It's not going to work, I have to go on before any other speaker, because the drunk ass boss is going to get up there.
Right.
And spend a half an hour babbling about something or complaining about somebody's work, or tell them they're going to have to take a pay cut, or a slideshow of Bob who just died some horrible death. And then you have no chance.
And you want to get up
in your contract. You learn to stack the deck in your favor. I have to go on before any other speaker. I don't care who it is. But people have to be done eating, all that kind of stuff. But one hard one I learned that way was, your go-between to the corporation is usually, I say it feels like it is some guy who's like, "Hey, yeah, man, I'm funny too. And hey, this will be, hey, roast the boss. He loves that. He loves it. Here's his name. Make fun of him because he's fat. He loves that. Or he's bald. Make fun of him because of that. Or make fun of him because he's a shitty golfer. He loves that stuff, man. And then you get up there. And now this just changed, I think, from between employees where he's kind of the top dog, but he can control the situation where he has to take some ribbing from those guys just because. But now you've turned into the new alphas challenging the old alpha with roasting this dude with, it doesn't even have to be harsh roasting, and he's not laughing.
Right.
Nobody's laughing. And there you are stuck up there with that decision. Do I grind out 45 to get my paycheck, or do I just do 10 or 15 and close this thing up and go? Again, like you said, one of the things, a lot of times when I started doing those corporates, I was not going to do 45 at that point. It was just, they don't know what they want. You ask them, how much comedy you want? I don't know, 2 hours? No. Let me tell you what you want. I'm going to come out there and I'm going to do 20 to 30 minutes, and that's going to be plenty because someone else is going to talk. They've already been doing something. They're tired, whatever. This is not comedy night. It's just I'm part of this business meeting, and they'd probably rather be home or at the bar drinking or whatever. 20, 30 minutes is going to be plenty.
Yeah.
I'm still going to want this amount of money for my 20 or 30 that you wanted me to do 2 hours for, but I'm telling you, here's what you want. And at the end, you're going to see that I'm right.
Yeah.
And be happy to give me that check, because I'm going to make you look good by doing 30 instead of 2 hours. If I do 2 hours, you're going to look like a goddamn idiot. And I'm helping you.
I always put, I always put 30 to 45, but it's generally closer to 30, unless we're just having a great time, which does happen, but yeah. And hopefully whoever learns these mistakes once, and you usually do, because they make an impression on you. Another mistake I learned was don't let them do the awards before you go on.
Right.
Because it just goes, oh, we're just going to do a few awards. And it goes on and on and on and on. But we're going to do the gift giving. No, don't do the gift giving, because everybody gets their gifts and they leave,
Yeah.
I once, early on, again, hadn't learned yet, signed a contract to do an hour for these people. Good money, really good money, Christmas show, an hour. And the woman comes up to me right before I go on, and she says, I'm really sorry. I know this probably isn't good, but because of scheduling, we're going to be serving dinner as we introduce you. Not just eating it, but serving dinner as we introduce. Yeah. And I'm doing an hour to knives and forks clinking.
Right.
And actually, I made a joke about it at the end. I go, good. Now you can have me back next year when you can actually hear me. I can do the same material next year.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why every time I did one, it was like, here's something else in the contract. I got to be the very first guy. Not when food's been being eaten, served, picked up before the boss. Was
that Dan French? I don't remember if it was your interview with Dan French, or somebody did an interview about that. When people are eating, the way they laugh is they go. So, hey,
but there's guys that make a living out of, that's all they do is corporate shows. Yeah. They've got it down to an art form. Yeah. I'm not one of them.
Yeah.
But
no, yeah.
I have a guy that he
keep it short and sweet.
Like Mark Cordes has that niche going on, that he'll go out there and spend a day playing golf with them. They have the company golf thing, and he'll go get in a foursome, and he loves to play golf, and he's really outgoing guy, and he knows all the golf jokes and can pull that thing off, and then comes back at night after, hey, go home, take a nap, clean up. Now he's already made friends with everybody. Now they're his buddies. He already set the table for himself. and goes in, and his act is really clean, and there's no dark spots in there where people are going to start to recoil going, I don't know if I should laugh at this. Is this bad? What? I mean, everything is above board, and I'm sure he made tons of money doing that, but he spent a lifetime perfecting that. And it was not like he just decided one day, screw these clubs, I'm going to go be a corporate giant. It's been 20, 30 years, and I'm sure he still learns every day. Learns something new about how do I still stack this in my favor? How do I make this easier? How do I make this better?
One thing I learned was I don't play golf, but they usually, a lot of times they will invite you to have dinner with them before the show.
Right.
And I used to say, because I don't eat before the show. I don't like to eat before I do a show. And I usually say, oh, thank you, but I don't like to eat before the show. I'll be hanging out in the back and introduce me when you're done.
That's usually how I like to do it.
That's but I've learned, for me, it's kind of the golf thing. Now I say, yeah, sure, great. I'd love to join you. I don't eat much, but I get to sit at a table with 10 people and talk to them and get a feel for who they are. And at least I have those 10 people on my side when I get up there.
Right.
So there's all kinds of little things. You want to tell me one last story or one last thing you want to talk about or that you're doing or?
Oh, God, you did it that long. There's a jillion road stories that sometimes, like, well, if you knew these guys, this would be hysterical. If you don't know them, maybe not.
Sure.
But
you don't have to. This really turned out to be. I had a guy that I was opening with for the week. That I was talking about starting doing this podcast. I've been talking about it for years. I'm a procrastinator. I think you're number 7. And I've been talking about this for years, and I'm really glad you're doing it, because this guy said, hey, if you do one, you've been doing it 25, 30 years. I'd love to watch that. I'd love to hear about it, how it experiences and this and that. And that's what this particular podcast, more than any of the other ones, turned into basically a kind of I don't know, not necessarily road stories, but how to maneuver the business or how to get started, and possibly the art of the road. Because I'm sure you're going to have guys who have epic freaking road stories about, and I was with John Fox or Frankie Bastille or those guys that have these insane road stories, and but some of that is the art of living on the road, which I think of what we talk about. How do I make my life easier? I don't come roaring up 10 minutes before the show starts in my junky old car and open the door with fast food wrappers blowing out and giving the manager a heart attack whether I was going to be there or not. I mean, there's some stuff that is business like. You got to treat it to some degree as a business and know that there are people who take note of that. If you are always running through the door, you're the MC and you run through the doors or doing your intro, that's not going to fly. It doesn't matter how much you kill, how funny you are. So if you don't get the announcements right, you are the go-between between the club and the audience. And you go up there and stumble through the announcements and don't get anything right and blow everybody's intro and think you're great. And so when the manager says, hey man, I need you to do 20 minutes tonight for whatever reason, saying, man, I'm going to do 35 because I'm just that damn funny. It's not about that. It's about the manager told you to do 20. He has some reason for that. That probably has nothing to do with you. Either the show started late. He has his reasons. So just do it. It's not about your ego. Do
do what they tell you to do. You are a contractor in there. I mean, if you had a contractor come to your house and say, hey, I need you to install a new toilet in here, and he comes back later and then you've put in some giant ornate shower that says, look how beautiful this giant ornate shower is that I just did, because look what I'm capable of doing. And he goes, I need a place to shit, man. You didn't fucking listen. I'm not paying you. Get out. You're never coming back.
Yeah.
No one would think that's unreasonable.
Right.
But if a club manager tells you, hey, man, I know you're the feature. You're headliner. What if you're the headliner? I need you to do 20. Just fucking do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And come back and do it again tomorrow.
If you're a huge star and people are paying big money to see you, that's a different story. And
Right.
You're in a position of power, but otherwise that's profession. Hey, Dave, I really appreciate you taking the time. It's really good to see you again. Don't see you often enough. Yeah, it's been a while.
Maybe I'll get to Idaho again someday.
Yeah. Maybe I'll get to Georgia again someday.
Give me a holler.
All right.
Thanks for having me, man. Enjoyed it.
Enjoyed it too. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it.
Take care.
Okay. You too, man.
Bye.
All right.